So what have you picked up from Nassim Taleb and how have you applied that to your business? Because he's got a myriad of wonderful books.
Yeah.
I think Antifragile, I've just reread Fooled by Randomness. Like, I just love the way he thinks.
As a VC, I met thousands of companies every year. I said no to thousands of companies every year, not investing in them, and probably said yes to a handful at max. Now, I think some of the parallels to the sort of black swan sort of theory, I think sometimes gives me a little bit of I look at business building a little bit in that sort of with the lens of black swans, in that you don't necessarily always know and you can't always predict sort of how things are going to play out in your particular business and whether you're going to be the one that sort of ramps up really quickly and explodes and sort of does really well, or if you're going to be the one that sort of tapers off. Like, are you going to be the black swan business that does really well? To a great extent, you don't necessarily know. And to some extent, maybe you can't even control it. Like, for many large companies, there's always this element of luck.
Yeah.
And I think if there's anything, I'd probably say that having, spent time as a VC, having met thousands of amazing founders that are, pushing so hard every day to build beautiful businesses, but still not making it or not being the right fit for our investment. I think the sort of black swan idea of you not necessarily being in control has almost given me a little bit of inner peace when it comes to building a business and just being respectful for the process, in that you don't necessarily know exactly what's going to happen. You can't control everything. Like, there's always an element of luck in any business. And so as long as you sort of keep chugging away on whatever you can do, then you'll be fine. And maybe you'll get the black swan event for yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about black swan mostly as positive. So
Yes, well, I think black swan's negative, white swan's positive.
White swan, fair enough.
Yeah. That's why. That's the way I sort of frame it. But it's interesting because it's like, again, one of his big things is barbell strategy, which is holding two opposing things at once.
Right.
That makes you anti-fragile, right? So,
yes.
like, for example, like the way he describes it is investing, right? So it's like, have a big chunk of your proportion in low risk bonds that are just going to keep taking away with some high risk stuff.
Yeah.
Those two opposing tensions make you anti-fragile. It's the barbell strategy.
Yep.
And I think what you're saying there, mate, I completely agree. It's like his whole thing is probabilistic thinking, right? Versus deterministic. And I think that's a good barbell strategy. It's like, be deterministic, like, this is where we're going.
Yep.
This is how Spotify is going to get built. This is the vision. But then actually be pretty loose, fluid, in the sense that there's something's going to go your way and a lot's going to go not your way.
Exactly.
But I think where people get bogged down is you're one or the other.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And I think it relates a lot to many of the brands we're working with in sort of how they minimize risk for themselves. I think one of the core, when we're judging whether to offer funding, for example, to a brand, one of the core things we're looking at is sort of revenue concentration, right? I think we've sort of
What do you mean by revenue concentration?
So revenue concentration would essentially think about it in terms of how distributed your source of revenue is.
Yeah.
If you're a brand that's just coming out, that's selling 95% of your revenue to one wholesaler or one grocer, that's a lot higher risk for us and for you than if you sit with 10, 15, 20 relatively easily sort of evenly distributed wholesalers and maybe a little bit of on-trade and off-trade, and you distribute your risk. And I think we've seen some, especially recently, some brands that have sort of gone really deep all in with one particular sort of partner, customer. And then for different reasons, maybe there's a bit of a black swan, they get pulled out. And then obviously having all your eggs in that basket can put you in a pretty tough spot. So again, that sort of probabilistic thinking of, hey, how do I minimize my risk by making sure that I try to not only go really deep with one, but hopefully spread my risks a little bit, really help me sort of maximize my opportunities, right? Obviously, it's an easy sort of thing to say, but it's so clear for some of the ones that we've seen gone through a tough time recently has been that sort of high concentration towards one end of the barbell, if you may. You essentially have all your eggs on one side of the barbell, which can be really high opportunity in terms of growth and size, right? You're signing this one big grocer and maybe that could be the one that takes you to the stars. But if it doesn't happen, you're fucked.
Espressos is sponsored by supply chain software gurus Unleashed. It talks to your e-com and accounting software. It's helped Islands cut admin time in half, get granular clarity on your margins, know where your stock is, don't miss availability. Brands like Candy Kittens, Tiny Rebel, and Trip all use Unleashed, and so should you.